LEGO. It's a company that most people know. A key part of their reach being so far is the timelessness of LEGO bricks. They're such simple little pieces, but their ability to be shaped into practically any and everything imaginable has made them ripe for constant evolution while still maintaining their original purpose, as well as being a very easily endorsable product, which helps to bring in even more buyers who wouldn't usually buy toys, but instead use them as a sculpture or a conversation starter. Another way LEGO has had such success is from venturing outside of just making toys, with things such as TV shows, movies, and the focus of today's video, video games. Now, toys being adapted into games is nothing new. It had been done for many years before LEGO joined in, but LEGO games struck a chord with people unlike any other attempt from toy companies making video games. Even to this day, many people still hold a lot of the old LEGO games in high regards as great informative games within their lives. But today's video isn't about those games. Today's video is about the biggest flopping LEGO game in history. And that game is...
It's time for the moment you've been waiting for!
The LEGO Movie 2, the video game. Now before you click off this video because you have absolutely no interest in this game and you were just making sure I didn't disrespect your favorite LEGO game, don't. I don't really have a good reason why you shouldn't leave the video, but just don't. Now I'll admit I couldn't find sales numbers for this game, but I couldn't find sales numbers for almost every LEGO game. So it doesn't necessarily mean that it is the biggest failure, but considering that I've never seen any ads for it, I've never heard anyone talk about it, and it never once comes to anyone's mind when they think of LEGO games, it's safe to assume that it definitely wasn't too popular amongst people. Now believe it or not, this game follows the plot of the LEGO Movie 2. Granted, it does make some creative decisions that are a little bit different than the movie, but I suppose that they were necessary for the game to be. Now since the movie wasn't too liked by critics and also wasn't very popular, it's safe to assume that it didn't help the game very much. But anyways, here's a rundown of what happens in the game. Our characters start out in Apocalypseburg, which is a version of Bloxburg from the first movie and also game I suppose, that's now in the middle of an apocalypse. And all of Emmett and Wildstyle's friends get abducted by General Mayhem of the Sistar system, so Emmett and Wildstyle have to travel from world to world, killing aliens, finding their friends, and trying to get to the ceremony that the Queen of the Sistar system is throwing, so that they can stop it and stop the Armageddon from happening. It may sound confusing, but overall it's a very simple and straightforward plot and execution. Although one weird thing they did was, instead of having the third act be playable, it was all summarized at the end of the game, which I can understand to an extent why they did it, because the set pieces in the movie at that point wouldn't lend themselves too well to a game, but surely they could come up with something to finish out the plot with. It just strikes me as either they just got complacent or they ran out of time. I'm hoping it was the latter, but I can't be too upset because it was nice to be done with this not so fun game, which leads me on to my next subject, the gameplay. So I'm guessing after almost 15 years of virtually unchanged gameplay, the players and the studio were both feeling a little fatigued of doing the same things over and over again with different coats of paint. So for this game, they decided to take a new approach to the gameplay, and unfortunately, at least for me, they didn't execute it too well. It's an odd mixture of old and new gameplay that never felt fully realized to its full potential. To explain, I'll start with something that I do like, the character selection. While the character roster in this game is nothing compared to other LEGO games, they got rid of character-specific abilities. While I could definitely see how you would dislike this change, because it makes all the characters play the same, I think it helps make every character feel useful, and it stops you from having to switch your character all the time. It truly gives you the freedom to play as whoever you want, whenever you want. But you may be wondering, if there's no character-specific abilities, then how do I use those abilities? Items. Items are just abilities that you slowly unlock through the game, each one giving you a previously character-specific ability or in some cases new abilities. These abilities include everything from Rex's gloves that can punch through specific green brick areas, to Benny's blowtorch that acts as this game's lasers, giving you the ability to cut through specific metal, even though everything is plastic, so I guess there's no real metal, but it's still quote-unquote metal in the game. It's you have to suspend your disbelief for this one. But one notable ability that is severely underutilized is the builder page. It's an item that's used to build items. I know that sounds confusing the way I'm wording it, but I don't know how else to word it. It's an item that builds objects. I'll explain with some gameplay in the background right now. On a whim whenever you want, assuming that you have the bricks to do so, which is something I didn't mention, but anytime you break something, you get bricks that you can use to build things. These bricks, I think they were supposed to be a bigger part of the game than they actually ended up being, because 9 times out of 10, you have enough bricks to build absolutely anything that you'll ever need. So, you never feel like you're running out, which I can't complain too much about. I don't want to feel like I'm running out of these bricks constantly, and I don't want to be stingy when I'm building objects. Not that I build them much, which let me get into now. Now, when this item was introduced in the first world, I thought it would be a catalog of buildable items that would expand as the game went on, with each level bringing me more things I'm able to build, which in turn would make more puzzles solvable. I mean, it only made sense. I was only given 4 items that I was able to craft, so surely it would give me more stuff to craft. But as the game went on, I realized they weren't adding anything to it. It was also used to craft objects for the NPCs, but other than that, it just felt underdeveloped and utilized. Especially since the one time I saw any kind of promotional gameplay, the building is what they were showing off. Okay. I've sat here and complained about the builder page, so I'll move on to the platforming. Like every LEGO game, it has pretty simple platforming. It doesn't try to do anything special. The boss fights also incorporate platforming, which at first, the boss fights seemed really imaginative, even though there's not that many. But like the builder page, as the game went on, there was nothing added. You would dodge attacks, trick the boss, and then climb on them, and hit little pink things popping out of them until they gave up. It was a pretty fun and imaginative idea for the first boss, but the novelty kind of wore off by the third one. Luckily, there wasn't an insane amount of bosses, so it wasn't able to become unbearably tedious. And the bosses' animations were smooth, and each one did look visually like a threat despite their cartoonish appearances. But bosses aren't the only enemies in the game. There's also standard enemies, but I can't say much about them because I quite literally never had to put in any effort to defeat them. Early in the game I got a weapon that could defeat virtually any enemy with one hit, so they never stood a chance against me. There was a little bit of variation between what they would do. Some would charge at you and you'd have to hit them on the back, and some you would have to flip over and hit them on their stomach to kill. But that was it overall. The design of them, I would say, were pretty decent. I liked them. They were pretty cool looking. Each one looked very distinct and unique from the others. But there wasn't too many enemies in the game, which isn't too bad considering that the combat isn't very complex. Although one thing they want you to be invested in is unlocking new weapons, but they don't come in too handy if there's barely any enemies to fight. Which unlocking weapons and customizable items is a big game mechanic, and there's a whole world dedicated to building buildings that you've unlocked and to have fun in it. I think it's a pretty good addition to the game, and it does motivate me to unlock all the chests in a world so that I can unlock all the building sets, which I do appreciate. Good after game content is very nice. You can also visit worlds from the first game, but they aren't mandatory, so I didn't play them because I was just trying to finish the game as quickly as possible so I could get this video out. There's completely new and original layouts though, for those levels from the first game, which is very appreciated, and even adds more content to this admittedly short game. As for the music, I don't really have much to say for it. They do a fun thing where some items, like a hat, will play Everything Is Awesome in them, or riding in a car plays the catchy song. But other than that, most of the tracks just struck me as pretty generic and fitting songs for the level, with only one real standout being the song playing at the end of the last level. That track really made me feel like I was doing something that was going to have an impact on the world. Here's a clip of it playing in the background while I'm playing, so you can get a feel for what I mean.
Are you sure you're ready? General Mayhem will try and stop you, you know. In any case, step onto the fan lift to proceed.
I suppose I can't stop you. Just promise me you'll think about what you're doing before you disable that force field.
Even though the majority of the music isn't very memorable or unique, I'm not trying to put down the composers because I can't imagine how hard it is to make a soundtrack for a space-themed LEGO game. It just sounds like a difficult task. That's pretty much a quick rundown of the whole game and everything that it has in it. But after all is said and done, it's not the worst game ever. I've definitely played worse games in my life, but that's not to say that this is that good of a game. They took a gamble with the game, trying something new, and it didn't work out too well in my opinion. Overall, I wouldn't really recommend that you play this game, but if you really want to, then by all means go ahead, I'm not going to stop you. But there are better LEGO and non-LEGO alternatives to it. I think it's safe to say that this being the least popular LEGO game is not a terrible fate for it, considering everything. At least it has the bragging rights of being a LEGO game in general, which gives it a little bit of credibility, deserved or not. But anyways, as I and a lot of YouTubers say, please like, comment, and hit that subscribe button. With all that said, thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.